sound. Good vibrations all around. Hey, now blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day. Wake up, sunlight tapping on the door. Feels like I've been here all before. Radio humming, the world feels right. Every little thing's in tune tonight. Shadows fade, the truth comes through. Fresh start in the morning blue. Hey now, blue sky shining down. Lift your feet, don't touch the ground. Laugh it off, let the good times stay. Oh yeah, it's a blue sky day.
Hey, good morning. Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. So do appreciate you being here. We've got so much to get to. Happy Friday. It's Friday. You guys know how much I love Fridays. Throw it in the comments section. Plans for this weekend. You know, I haven't done that in a while. I want to know what you're up to this weekend. Hopefully you're staying safe and you're not going to be one of those lefty agitators in the streets, plowing down ice with your vehicle. So that brings me to today's stories. Tom Homan, he's vowing to expose these lefty agitators, and he's revealed a plan to make them famous. So we're going to get into Tom Homan. Tom Homan is one of my favorites, if not my favorite. I think RFK Jr. Is my favorite Trump administration official, but Tom Homan's up there. I can't decide between the two. I like how Tom Homan is just going to say what he's going to say. He's not interested in launching some sort of platform after this. Unlike Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, they kind of came from media backgrounds, or, you know, Pam Bondi, she's constantly on Fox News. I think she's seeking some sort of Fox News contributor job. Kash Patel, he was a podcaster before. I think that they're looking to launch themselves into something else after the Trump administration, or after they're done serving the Trump administration. And I just don't see that in Tom Homan. I don't even really see it in RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is right where he's supposed to be, and he knows it. So we are going to talk about the inverted pyramid. So really, quite literally, it was flipped. The pyramid was flipped. And we're going to talk about some new guidelines, things about whole milk. RFK Jr. is recommending you drink whole milk, you eat meat, you move, at least every day. Like if you were to move, eat whole foods, 90% of your problems go away. So we're going to talk about RFK a little bit later, but I do want to start out with the Tom Homan plan to reveal these agitators. And then I do want to talk about these Democrats impeaching Kristi Noem, because it's an Illinois congresswoman who drew up articles of impeachment. And really, they're impeaching Kristi Noem not for the reasons you'd think. Okay, and I'm going to break that down. Gavin Newsom is also in the news. He sold out his own communications team, but I talked about his press office. They are truly unhinged. I don't know who's working there, but Gavin, you got to fire him. So we have Gavin Newsom. He backpedaled this vile ICE statement that they had put out on their social media. The official taxpayer-funded press office, they put it out there on X. It was a vile statement calling ICE terrorists. So we're going to talk about Gavin Newsom. But first, Let's start out with White House border czar Tom Homan. He warned that, hey, leftist agitators, if you're interfering with federal law enforcement and federal immigration authorities, he's saying, hey, we're going to make you famous. We're developing a plan to make you famous. He's going to urge the Trump administration to roll out this plan. I don't know how legit this plan is, or if it's just a wish list item for Tom Homan, but I think it's hilarious. Tom Homan, he had an interview with Laura Ingraham yesterday, and this appears to be a direct response to Minnesota governor. We talked a lot about Tim Walz yesterday, who has amped up the chaos in his state. He is essentially inciting protesters to go harass ICE agents, which is what Governor J.B. Pritzker did. He said, oh, take out your cell phone, record everything. Tim Walz did the same thing yesterday in some bizarre 6-ish minute video. It was like a news conference. And rather than turning down the temperature, these street thugs continue to impede government operations. And the governor posted this video, the 6-minute video, encouraging the already unhinged anti-ICE protesters to film the ICE agents and create a database of these atrocities against Minnesotans and bank evidence for future prosecutions. Because, like all authoritarian regimes, they rig the elections, which they've done, and I explained in detail how they do that through the nonprofit organizations. They're taxpayer funded, and they're ideologically bent, a lot of these nonprofit organizations, and they act as a voting apparatus for the Democrat Party. This is an arm of the Democrat Party, and they're funded by your tax dollars. So it's impossible to win. Republicans are finding it to be impossible to win in places like Minnesota, Illinois, New York, California. Why? Because they've weaponized the nonprofit organizations as a voting apparatus, an ecosystem, and they get out the vote on behalf of Democrats, and they're doing it with taxpayer dollars, and there's no way you could compete against that. You can't outfund the taxpayer via a campaign. You just can't do it. You can't collect enough donations. That's why Republicans don't win in places like Illinois or Minnesota. Okay, so and then they've got the voting. So all authoritarian regimes, they rig the vote. Okay, and you see that in places like Minnesota, Illinois, with these nonprofit organizations. And then they get these nonprofit organizations to go out into the judicial system and launch lawsuits against, either the federal government or laws that they don't like, enforcement of laws that they don't like, and they weaponize the court system in their favor. So, yeah, it's an authoritarian regime in both Minnesota, Illinois. But Tom Homan says that, hey, two can play at this game. You're going to film our ICE agents? Okay. You want to bank all the evidence so you can weaponize that video footage and go prosecute them in the court system via these nonprofits who have the means, by the way, because like I said, they're taxpayer funded, who have the means to launch lawsuits. Tom Homan promises to publicly shame Tim Walz's street radicals. That's what I'll call them, the street radicals. So Homan says, quote, these people who want to follow ICE and film ICE, you know what? You can protest. You have that right. But when you cross that line, when you start to impede with an ICE officer, you're going to be prosecuted. And he goes, one thing I'm preaching right now, Laura, we are going to create a database. People that are arrested for interference, impeding, assault. We are going to make them famous. We're going to put their faces on TV, and we're going to let their employers know what they're doing every day, because most likely their employers, and a lot of what these street radicals, who they are, they have day jobs, but they don't go to their day jobs, and they actually get paid through a nonprofit organization. And what Tom Homan says that they want to do is release their face on TV, let their employers, let their neighborhoods and their schools know exactly what they're up to, because they're not going to work probably, and they're getting paid via these nonprofits to go out there and be a little street radical. So let's take a listen to Tom Homan. There's a couple of clips I want to get to. Here we go.
The Insurrection Act, or would that just add gasoline to the fire?
Now that's a different clip. I do want to play that clip. We are going to talk about the Insurrection Act. This is the one that I'm talking about, where Tom Homan discusses this new plan to reveal the faces of these street radicals. Take a listen.
Job and these people who want to say follow ICE, and film ICE, you know what? You can protest. They have that right. But when you cross that line, and we've proven it, if you interfere or impede or assault an ICE officer, you will be prosecuted. And one thing I'm pushing for right now, Laura, we're going to create a database where those people that are arrested for interference, impediment, assault, we're going to make them famous. We're going to put their face on TV. We're going to let their employers in their neighborhoods, in their schools, know who these people are. Because as you said, a lot of these people, they say they're taking time off work to protest. I bet you a lot of them are calling in sick. I bet you a lot of their employers don't know what they're doing. But we're going to make sure everybody knows who they are. We're going to broadcast. They want to broadcast the ICE officer that was nearly killed all over the internet. We're going to broadcast every one of these people we arrest.
I love that little chuckle he has. He suggested that a lot of these people who are causing this chaos, they're not informing their supervisors that they're missing work because they're going to go out to the streets and be little radicals and cause chaos. No, they're taking off work. They're calling in sick. They're collecting a paycheck probably from these nonprofit organizations, which needs to be investigated. But Tom Homan goes on, we're going to make sure everyone knows who they are. It'll be something to see these rubes, putting on masks again, if we were to actually do this, if the Trump administration were to actually do this. And maybe Tom Homan brings it up. He's supposed to be meeting with Donald Trump about the Insurrection Act. I'll get into what that is. But it would be great to see Tom Homan convince Donald Trump to set up this database, to publicly shame these people, because now they're going to be putting masks back on. They wore masks during COVID-19, but now they're going to be putting masks on to hide their identities so they can try to ram ICE agents with their SUVs or bash in ICE vehicles' windows. And they want to do it without any kind of consequences or accountability. So they're going to be putting the masks on. So we can't find out who they are via this database. But, I think that's kind of funny. They're, all upset about law enforcement wearing masks, which is to protect their identity because they're constantly being doxxed, not just by civilians on their personal social media. We're talking about taxpayer-funded nonprofits taking pictures of ICE officers when they're in their communities and putting it out there on the internet. Like, this is a taxpayer-funded page. You have, potentially thousands of people following you because you're supposed to be providing a service in exchange for taxpayer funds. So you have taxpayers following your page. And, some of these nonprofits have pretty large pages, and they're putting out ICE officers' faces. So they've mocked law enforcement for wearing masks. As soon as we start up our own database, MAGA, Trump, if he starts up his own database and starts publicly posting pictures of the people who are impeding, are arrested for impeding, interfering with ICE operations, or assaulting ICE officers, as soon as we start putting up their faces, most likely they're going to be wearing masks too. So now I don't know how legit this is. It might just be something that Tom Homan is hoping to see. Unclear if the Trump administration actually is going to follow through with Tom Homan's plan to make him famous. But I say, hey, Trump, hear out Tom Homan's plan here. If their actions are leading to arrests, these agitators, if their actions are leading to arrests, and they are actually arrested for assault, if they're actually arrested for impeding, interfering with ICE operations, I say plaster videos, their names, their faces all over news outlets, social media. Trump did vow, by the way, recently to bring out the big guns. So what are the big guns? If Walz doesn't get the situation under control in Minneapolis, if there is still huge riots and chaos, Trump is invoking the Insurrection Act. I have called for this. If you go back into the archives here, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a second of the Conservative Cat Show. But for the past year, I've been calling for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act in Chicago because there's this Supreme Court ruling that came down that said that he can't use the National Guard. But the Supreme Court sort of opened up a window or a door for him to use the Marines or the Army. And they pretty much said in their Supreme Court ruling, like, you can't use the National Guard quite yet. You have to use other means, other like forces before you do that. So essentially what the Supreme Court did, I think they provided an opening for Trump to deploy the Marine Corps out to Chicago instead of the National Guard. But Pritzker, he, used it to his advantage, this Supreme Court ruling, and manipulated it. And he said, oh, well, Donald Trump is unconstitutional because he's using the National Guard in Chicago. Look, folks, Trump could have used that National Guard by invoking the Insurrection Act right away. I think he needs to invoke the Insurrection Act and not only deploy National Guard, but you've got Marines, 82nd Airborne. I mean, I don't care what kind of fighting force we've got there, but he's got to do something. And I've been calling for him to invoke the Insurrection Act. Now he's playing around with it on Truth Social. He wants to invoke the Insurrection Act to protect ICE patriots from Walz's mob. Here's what he wrote on Truth Social, Trump. If corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are trying to do their jobs, I will institute the Insurrection Act. So please don't wait, Donald. Like, please don't wait any longer. I've been waiting for this. Don't wait on, folks, does Tim Walz give you Elmo vibes? I don't know. You do a side-by-side comparison, and I just feel like he gives me Elmo vibes. I don't know. Maybe it's the theater kid inside of him, like the jazz hands. But he just reminds me of like a kiddie show character, Elmo. Okay. Don't wait on little Elmo Tim Walz to tone things down. He won't do it. Okay. You're going to be waiting a while. It's best to take Tom Homan's advice. Tom Homan has talked about the Insurrection Act before. He's the border czar. He's meeting with President Donald Trump today, I believe. And perhaps the Insurrection Act is going to come up as a topic, and maybe the database thing as well, putting these agitators up on a database, these people who are arrested for impeding or interfering with ICE agents. But take a listen. Tom Homan was asked about this on Fox News.
I'm not going to get ahead of the president on that, but it's certainly an option, a viable option. So actually, I'll be meeting with the president tomorrow. So, I think it's something that needs to be on the table because this cannot continue. There is going to be more bloodshed. I'm telling you. I hope I'm wrong, but I haven't been yet. There's going to be more bloodshed if something hasn't done.
It's going to spread, and most Minnesotans, by the way, and I want to say this tonight because folks have reached out to me, support ICE. It's this radical group of anarchists, and when you see them close up, you really get a sense of who they are. It's this crowd, a lot of them paid, a lot of them working, double shifts of protest against the rest of the state, which are reasonable, common sense, peaceful people of all backgrounds, including immigrant backgrounds. They don't like what's happened in the Twin Cities, and we're going to expose more about Jacob Frey in a moment. But Tom, I think most people are good people. They want the bad people out, and they want some peace in their neighborhoods.
And we're going to get the bad people out. And as far as the organization everybody that's planning these protests, giving these people weapons and funding this, again, justice is coming because we're deep diving that whole thing.
Okay, so there's going to be more bloodshed, he says. I'm telling you, I hope I'm wrong, but there's going to be more bloodshed if something isn't done. So, unfortunately, that's what Walz and the Democrats are hoping for. They want more bloodshed. This is chaos. The outrage machine is their ticket for fundraising and more votes. Like I said, the nonprofit organizations who are, at the center of this whole thing, they're the ones training people in these Ice Watch groups, virtual Ice Watch groups. They're the ones with the funding. I mean, chaos is so good for them because, if they can get you to believe that Renee Good is a mother that was attacked by an ICE officer, without provocation and was killed without provocation, if they can get you to believe that, people's hearts, we are here in America, and I call it the liberal bleeding heart. Okay, they've just got these bleeding hearts, and they confuse compassion. They don't know what true compassion looks like, and true compassion is telling the truth. Okay, Jesus said, "I am the truth, the way, and the life." True compassion is telling the truth, not lying to someone. And it's really sad because liberals just don't understand that, and they've got these bleeding hearts, and they've distorted compassion, and they think that lying is compassionate. So they lie, and they talk about Renee Good being a devout mother and was killed without provocation. And, well, it's just not true. We've all seen the video, one. But two, if they can get people to believe that, they can go donate, and they're more willing to fund the outrage machine. And they live on that. The Democrats live on that on that outrage machine, on the nonprofit organizations. Okay, look how quickly they walked all over Renee Good's grave to score political points. That's really what it was. Sad that she died. It was of her own will. She essentially killed herself. She smiled when ramming into that ICE officer. I heard the clunk. I mean, if it was not deliberate, she did not slow down. Okay. And they're dancing all over her grave, the liberals, to score political points and to fund these nonprofit organizations. I can't highlight that enough. It is all about this fundraising to keep them elected. And to keep their apparatus justified. If they can say, oh, look, my immigration nonprofit organization helps, immigrants and the families of Renee Good, the activist, immigration activist, our group helps those people, then they're justified and they continue to exist. So, yeah, this is all about fundraising and votes. Okay, because like I said, the nonprofits who are at the center of this thing, they are also the Democrats' arm to get out the vote. So I do want to shift gears. We are going to talk about the impeachment of Kristi Noem. Today's episode is one of those moments where, like, you rub your eyes and you're like, wait a second. They didn't actually do this, but yes, they did. They impeached, they're going to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, not because she broke the law, not because she enriched herself, not because she abused her office, but because she's enforcing federal immigration law. Like I said, authoritarian regimes, they get the two things necessary in order to control the people. Rigging the election, they've done that with these nonprofit organizations. Get out the vote operation, using taxpayer funds. They use public funds here in the state of Illinois for the government offices. I mean, this happened in Champaign. This has happened in McLean County in Illinois. where they use taxpayer funds to put out quite literally propaganda to try to get you to vote for increased sales taxes or increased property taxes, tax referendums. Okay. And they'll use taxpayer dollars to put these big billboards up or to get the state or the government to put out campaign slogans and ideologies and get you to try to vote yes for their causes. And that's straight up like propaganda. That's like an authoritarian regime. So they get the voting and then they weaponize the courts. It's funny how nobody's brought up changing the immigration law. Like no Democrat, from what I can tell, has brought up like, hey, we're going to change immigration law. We're not going to require citizenship. We're not going to require temporary status of any kind for you to remain in the country and not face deportation. Like we're going to do away with this whole thing called sovereignty. And perhaps they don't bring it up because it is unconstitutional. We are to be a sovereign nation, and it probably gets shut down very quickly. If not by their colleagues in Congress, it would be shut down pretty quickly by the courts. But what they're really trying to do is get rid of the immigration law without actually getting rid of it. So this tells you everything you need to know about where we're at as a country. This impeachment of Kristi Noem. So let me walk you through how it's all unfolding. Let's start with the impeachment, because really this is Democrats and how they're no longer able to tolerate consequences. And how they hate the word accountability. They hate the word consequences. These illegal criminal aliens, they're facing consequences. They're facing accountability for breaking immigration law, and Democrats don't want them to face consequences for that law because they don't like the law. But rather than change the law, they're going and do it through the legislative process. They're going to try to sway public opinion and try to get the public to think that this isn't law. Okay, that's what Democrats are doing, and it's complete anarchy. So ICE has been carrying out enforcement operations. Again, like I said, they're real ones, not press conference enforcement, not symbolic enforcement, actual arrest, actual deportations. Like I said, Donald Trump didn't get in office and he wasn't going to snap his fingers and then all of these people were going to disappear. He said very clearly on the campaign trail, I'm going to be carrying out mass deportation operations. And we voted for the guy. Okay. We didn't want Joe Biden anymore. The 20 million illegals pouring over the border. We voted for Donald Trump to carry out mass deportations, and that's what he's doing. Because these people who are not supposed to be here, and these are people who are not supposed to be here, and we've proven that they're not supposed to be here because a lot of these deportations are being carried out via a deportation order or investigations conducted by ICE that proves that these people have either overstayed their visas, or they're not citizens of this country, or that they're border jumpers, or that they violated their temporary status. And this is a big reason as to why somebody might face deportation. You violated terms of your temporary status, meaning you committed crimes while you were here on a temporary status, and now we're deporting you. Okay, so ICE is proven, and they have to, in order to do targeted operations, and most of them are targeted. In order for them to do targeted operations, they have to do their homework. Okay, so in Chicago, one of these operations, it was called Operation Midway Blitz. The name alone sent the activist class into orbit. They were freaking out. Operation Midway Blitz. Almost immediately, Democrats started telling horror stories. Doors are being kicked in, zip ties, homes are ransacked, kids' toys are scattered across the floor, and these agents are going in unidentified. I don't know, ICE across their chest or police across their chest. I think that's probably an identifiable officer. Okay, it's not like they're going in like, a baseball cap and street clothes. Even if they were, Like, yeah, that's how operations are conducted undercover. And without a shred of evidence, they're out there, Democrats. I'm going to play Robin Kelly and how she introduced these articles of impeachment. Without a shred of evidence, they talk about how these officers are part of an extremist group. Okay, it's like Donald Trump is contracting out, the Proud Boys to go in and do these operations. So that's always the move. These Democrats, if they can't stop the law enforcement, if they can't stop the policy, the Trump policy, the mass deportations, and they don't want to argue policy, they don't want to change the law legislatively. If you want open borders, do it. Write the bill. Okay. Change the law, amend the law. But they can't do it that way because they're lazy and they want to poison public trust. And that's what they're doing by suggesting that law enforcement isn't actually law enforcement. And they're being conspiratorial, and they're trying to convince the public that the law enforcement, the guy with ISIS across his chest, is actually an extremist, KKK member, and they make the people afraid. You float out that suggestion that somebody enforcing the law is evil and is a bad actor, or somebody who doesn't have or isn't deputized to do this, to enforce the law. You start to poison public trust, and I've heard the Democrats using that term, public trust. They're the ones poisoning public trust by suggesting, without a shred of evidence, that these law enforcement officers are not actually deputized by our official government to go out and enforce our laws. Okay. And that they're just rogue people. It's just bizarre. So Robin Kelly, Congresswoman, Illinois, took to the House floor and turned all of this, all of these accusations into articles of impeachment against Kristi Noem. So she has 3 articles of impeachment. One is obstruction of Congress, violation of public trust, and self-dealing. So I'm going to play the clip. Notice here how she never explains in detail what Kristi Noem is doing wrong or has did wrong. Take a listen.
I rise today to announce I will be impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Secretary Noem has violated the Constitution, and she needs to be held accountable for terrorizing our communities. Operation Midway Blitz has torn apart the Chicagoland area. President Trump declared war on Chicago, and then he brought violence and destruction to our city and our suburbs in the form of immigration enforcement. In my district, federal agents rappelled down from Black Hawk helicopters and burst into an apartment building in the South Shore area. They dragged U.S. citizens and non-citizens alike out of their beds in the middle of the night. They claimed the apartment was infiltrated by members of a Venezuelan gang. I don't understand this president's obsession with Venezuela, but they did not arrest a single member from that gang. I visited that apartment building and saw firsthand the destruction those agents left. Doors to people's homes or apartments were kicked down. Belongings, including little kids' toys, were strewn about in the hallway. That raid and so many others shook our community, not just immigrants, but everyone. Now Secretary Noem has brought her reign of terror to Minneapolis after she left Charlotte and Raleigh. We have all seen what happened. An ICE officer shot and killed Renee Nicole Good in cold blood. Without knowing any of the facts or an investigation, Secretary Noem lied about what happened. She called her beloved 37-year-old mom a domestic terrorist. Secretary Noem and her rogue agents are the ones terrorizing our communities, and she is breaking the law to do so. I will hold her accountable, and I'm filing 3 articles of impeachment against Secretary Noem. Number 1, obstruction of Congress. Secretary Noem has denied me and other members of Congress oversight of ICE detention facilities. It is our constitutional duty to find out what's happening in these centers where people are reportedly being treated like less than animals. 2, violation of public trust. Secretary Noem directed ICE agents to arrest people without warrants, use tear gas against citizens, and ignore due process. She claims she's taken murderers and rapists off our streets, but none of the 614 people arrested during Operation Midway Blitz has been charged or convicted of murder or rape. 3, self-dealing. Secretary Noem has abused her power for personal benefit. She steered a federal contract to a new firm run by a friend, her friend. Her propaganda campaign.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to pause here because I want to jump in, and I promise I'll play the rest of the clip. It's important. She says none of the, 116 people who were arrested have been charged. So a lot of what ICE is doing, I think that she's doing some word games here. A lot of what ICE is doing, they're not charging them for rape and murder here in this country, but they're going to deport them and have them face the music or face accountability in their country. So, for example, El Salvador, you deport what was his name? Father Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They deported him and had him go be convicted and serve out a prison sentence in El Salvador. Right. So I think she's playing word games here. They're murderers, rapists, and they've had priors, and then they come to the country and they were denied entry. Okay. So they're the murderers and rapists in their own countries. Okay. Venezuelan gang members, Latin kings, they're murderers and rapists in their country. They come to this country, border hop, and commit crimes. Now, whether that's murder or rape, it doesn't really matter. They're murderer and rapists who border jumped, and then they violated federal immigration law. They deport, and then whatever crimes that they, have committed here, they're going to go serve out their time in their country. Because 20 million illegals. Do we really want 20 million illegals blocking up or clogging up our prison system, our prisons, taxpayers paying for 20 million illegals in our prison systems? No, that would kind of be self-defeating. So I think she's kind of playing word games here, but take a listen to the rest of it.
To recruit ICE agents cost taxpayers $200 million. She made a video that turned the South Shore raid into something that looked more like a movie trailer. But make no mistake, this is not a movie. This is real life, and real people are being hurt and killed. I really have to wonder who are the people behind the mask. These DHS agents have no identifying factor. From all their botched raids and officer-involved shootings, I have to ask, what is their training like? What is the vetting? Is Secretary Noem recruiting January 6th insurrectionists? I was one of the last members of Congress to escape the House gallery on January 6th. I remember hiding on my hands and knees and running through the hallways to a safe room. Insurrectionists are not fit to serve as law enforcement. I realize.
I think it's so funny. None of them have been charged with rape or murder. And she's, playing some word games there. Of course, they're not going to be charged with rape and murder. Now, if they are committing those crimes here in this country, on top of their prior crimes, they're going to be charged in this country. And then they're going to be probably extradited back home to serve out their sentence because we don't want them clogging up our prison system. Like I said, but I think it's so funny. She talks about these insurrectionists on January 6th. Nobody on January 6th was charged with insurrection. They were all charged with trespassing. So there is no such thing as January 6th insurrectionists. So how in the world could Kristi Noem recruit January 6th insurrectionists if nobody was ever charged with insurrection? They were mainly charged with trespassing or threatened with terrorism charges, actually a terrorism charge. I forget the guy's name, but he was a J6er and he was charged with trespassing. But then the prosecutor had said we're going to charge you with domestic terrorism as well. And that you're facing a 20-year sentence. And he killed himself. And the prosecutor later admitted that, if he would have just waited, we would have gotten that pled down. He probably wouldn't have faced that charge, the domestic terrorism charge. So, yeah, how could Kristi Noem be recruiting insurrectionists if nobody was actually charged with insurrection? But I digress. Let's continue.
That impeachment of Secretary Noem does not bring Renee back. True justice would be Renee alive today, at home with her family. Impeachment doesn't bring back the 4 other people killed by immigration officers this year, including a man in Chicago. We could not bring them back to their loved ones. What we can do, though, is impeach Secretary Noem, hold her accountable, let her know the public is watching. In this country, we do not kill people in cold blood without consequences. These are not policy disagreements. These are violations of her oath of office, and she must answer for her impeachable actions.
Okay, so that's Robin Kelly. She doesn't bring any kind of evidence. She doesn't even really explain what Kristi Noem has done wrong here. It's just impeachment by vibe. Okay, she doesn't bring forward who was the man. Okay, in Chicago, she doesn't talk about the guy in Chicago. I don't know who she's talking about, but she didn't talk about who he was. I'm sure that this was an illegal immigrant who, was facing deportation because he broke federal immigration law. Robin Kelly, what I think you should do is actually bring forward a bill and change the immigration law legislatively. Like, I don't know, somebody who respects our democratic process, respects our constitutional republic, our representative republic. Okay, why don't you change the law if you don't like it? And this is impeachment by accusation, and it's impeachment because Democrats don't like the outcome of enforcing law. Like I said, Democrats lie, and they confuse lying with compassion. Telling the truth is true compassion. And they don't like the outcomes here of enforcing the law because it's uncomfortable. Somebody leaves or somebody gets deported, and some of these people might be Maria, who violated her work visa, and she's no longer working at the place that she told the United States she'd be working in order to keep her work visa. And maybe Maria has a couple of kids. Maybe ICE went in and cuffed her and tossed about the kids' rooms. Okay. Or tossed the rooms. Who cares? Right? I mean, that's law enforcement. They don't like the looks of it. Okay. It's unsettling for them. But that is the law. If they don't like it, they can change the law through the legislative process. So Kristi Noem, she did something rare in Washington, which is to not panic. She was on Fox News, and she calmly explained that her department is forcing federal law and that they are prioritizing American citizens, and they are arresting murderers, rapists, and traffickers. Okay, so they're arresting murderers, rapists, and traffickers. Now, they might not all be current murderers or current rapists or current traffickers in the United States of America, and they might not have committed those crimes in the U.S., but they could have committed those crimes prior to arriving in the U.S. They were denied citizenship or temporary status, denied entry, but they border hopped anyway. So that leads to arrest and deportation as well. Not to say that there aren't murderers, rapists, and traffickers. I can think of several names, like in Riley, Emma Schaefer. There's several victims out there who have been murdered, raped, and trafficked in the United States by illegal immigrants that were let in by the millions via Joe Biden. So Democrats won't say this out loud, but every time ICE arrests a violent illegal immigrant, for example, Gabriel Calixto, okay, I just know this one off the top of my head because this was an Illinois victim, Emma Schaefer. They arrested him. He fled to Mexico after allegedly stabbing Emma Schaefer. And prior to that, he was in this country. His green card or his DACA, he was a DACA recipient that was revoked after he had kidnapped a different girl, served in the Illinois Department of Corrections, was supposed to be deported, wasn't under Joe Biden, stayed in the country, and then ultimately murdered, allegedly, stabbed to death a woman named Emma Schaefer, a really young girl about my age. And every time ICE conducts an arrest, and they found him in Mexico, and they are going to have him answer for his crimes in the United States because he did the murder here in the United States. They're going to have him answer for his crimes here. They're going to convict him. Likely, they're going to extradite him back to a Mexico prison. That's what I would imagine would happen with a lot of these, because why clog up our prison systems? But every time a violent illegal immigrant is arrested, the narrative collapses. The illusion that this is all about harmless families, and maybe some, like Maria, who, harmlessly did not keep her job to maintain her work visa, that would appear harmless. And a paperwork, issue, maybe it collapses this narrative that's what this is all about, and they can't let that happen, the Democrats. So, soon enough, you've got more Democrats piling on. This is Congresswoman Valerie Foushee. She announced that she fully supports the impeachment and that ICE can't be allowed to continue putting lives in danger. Take a listen.
Hey, North Carolina. In the wake of ICE's horrific killing of Renee Nicole Good and the Trump administration's sickening response, I want you to know that I have co-sponsored Congresswoman Robin Kelly's articles of impeachment against DHS Secretary Noem. ICE cannot be allowed to continue putting lives in danger across our country, and the impeachment of Secretary Noem is the bare minimum Congress can do to protect our communities. I'm pushing for legislation that makes it illegal for ICE to stop U.S. citizens or make any stops based on nationality or race. And I'm also fighting to...
I'm going to pause there. Based on nationality or race. I said this yesterday, like a very small portion of the world population is white. Very small portion. And most of it's brown, people of color. White people, there's only a majority of white people in maybe some, not even European countries anymore. A lot of it's been taken over by Arabs or Muslims, European countries. Europe is really, specifically the UK. But world population wise, very small percentage are white people. Okay, so what she's saying here, she wants to craft legislation that would forbid ICE to deport them based on their nationality or race. Like, I hate to say it, Valerie Foushee, this congresswoman, pretty much everybody that ICE is going to, statistically speaking, is going to be a person of color. Why? Because like 95, and I'm throwing out a number, % of the world population are people of color. It's probably not that, but a majority of people, world population, and we've invited the world via Joe Biden to come across our border. So like most of them are going to be people of color. Like you can't change that. But take a listen. Here we go.
Ensure strict oversight over detention facilities that are mistreating detainees and to force ICE to be visibly identifiable and wear body cameras. Trump's militarized ICE is wholly incompatible with our democracy, and we need to stop it before more lives are lost.
Okay, so she says we can't allow ICE to continue putting lives in danger. What lives? Because every criminal ICE removes is one less victim waiting to happen. Okay, and like I said, the Robin Kelly, she was kind of stretching her words a little bit there. She says, the people through Operation Midway Blitz, they haven't been charged in this country for murder or rape. Now, I don't know about trafficking, weapons trafficking. She didn't mention trafficking. I found that interesting. But because they're gang members, they're drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, murder and rape, maybe not, but they might have been murder and rapists in their country, border hopped, came to this country, violated immigration law. That warrants deportation, and they are criminal illegal aliens. They have a criminal history of murder and rape, and they're here in this country, and they weren't granted access through the legal channels. So, if we can deport them before they murder and rape people, because we know that they have a criminal history of it, if we can deport them, that's one less victim waiting to happen. Okay, but Democrats never talk about those victims. The Americans killed by repeat offenders, either offenders in their own countries or repeat offenders in this country. Perhaps they are killing Americans. I gave you a couple of examples, like in Riley, Emma Schaefer. There's more. Narange, Jocelyn, I think. Narange is her name. There's several. I mean, the list goes on. No. Runge, I think is her name. Yeah, the killing of Jocelyn Narange. She was sexually assaulted and killed in Texas. The case gained national attention. 2 illegal immigrants from Venezuela were charged with her murder. Okay, so this does happen. And families are completely destroyed when Americans are killed by these repeat offenders, when women are assaulted by these repeat offenders. So right on cue, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, this was prior to the articles being officially announced. He went on CNN the Sunday before the articles were officially announced, and he wagged his finger and he demanded that Kristi Noem resign or be impeached. And he accused the administration of lawlessness. He even called a DHS official a pathological liar. Here we go. Take a listen.
We're seeing it in Minneapolis. We're seeing the shooting in Portland and elsewhere. They are, ICE and CBP, are breaking their own protocols. You read them earlier, their own protocols, and not only roughing people up, but literally shooting at people and killing them when in some cases they're U.S. citizens and they're doing nothing wrong. So this is why I have said that the president is not following the law, why Kristi Noem needs to resign or be impeached, and why Tricia McLaughlin should not have the job that she has. She's a pathological liar. She's their spokesperson.
Okay. Yeah, that's Governor J.B. Pritzker. It's rich coming from this guy, who is the governor of a state that is completely bleeding people, drowning in debt, struggling with violent crime. But yet somehow, I mean, on the CTA, on the Chicago Transit Authority, I would think it was a train. Somebody lit a woman on fire. Okay, but somehow he finds the time to go on CNN and lecture the federal government about enforcing federal law. But Pritzker didn't stop there. He encouraged Illinois residents a few months ago to film ICE operations, to pull out your cell phone and narrate what you see and post it online. Think about how reckless that is. You're telling civilians to go out there, and they're your little foot soldiers, essentially. Go out there, join an ICE watch group, join one of these nonprofits, taxpayer funded. What they're doing is they're creating a militia. And it's a blend of civilians and the nonprofit sector. And you're telling them to interfere with federal law enforcement. You are in open rebellion. You need to be in cuffs. Shame on Donald Trump for not doing that. I think that he needs to put Tim Walz in cuffs. I think that he needs to put JB in cuffs, Brandon Johnson. You're putting officers at risk. You're inviting chaos when you tell civilians to go out there and film. Why don't you do something about the immigration law if you don't like it? But these people, it's not about open border. It's not about the immigrants. They could care less about the immigrants. It is a fundraising ecosystem. Chaos makes people have these liberal bleeding hearts, makes people donate to these nonprofits, makes people get involved with these nonprofits. And these nonprofits are an arm of the Democrat Party. And they work on behalf of the Democrat Party to get the Democrats elected. So that way the Democrats can funnel taxpayer money into their organizations. And then everybody's making money and everybody's happy. Okay. And they call Trump and Kristi Noem, authoritarian. I don't know about you, but using taxpayer money to get yourself elected over and over and over again and funneling it and laundering it through nonprofits, under the guise that you're compassionate and that your state's compassionate, your government's compassionate. That's why you're funneling all of these taxpayer dollars into these services like childcare. Okay, under this guise of compassion, but really you're collecting that money via your campaign coffers, either directly, where these 501c3s also have 501c4s, And then they donate to the Democrats directly with that taxpayer money, which is straight up money laundering, or they just get, taxpayer money funneled into the 501c3, and the 501c3, gets out the vote, through their 501c4 that they have, or they, encourage people to go out there and film ICE. And, it's a ideological organization, and you're using taxpayer dollars to fund it. That's authoritarian. It's just authoritarian. And, in Normal, Illinois, and I brought this up yesterday, taxpayer supported, not completely funded, because we don't know, because nonprofits aren't required, like Immigration Project, to disclose how much money they get via donations and how much money they get via taxpayer grants. There's a way to figure it out. You can go to the comptroller's website. They pay out via vendor payments. The Immigration Project put out an alert warning that ICE was in the area. Normal, Illinois. The group provides services to immigrants and presents itself as a humanitarian organization. And by services, I mean legal services to avoid deportation. And, I don't know about you, but I'm not afforded services that are taxpayer funded to, provide me legal advice. There's things in my daily life. It'd be nice to have a lawyer that I have access to, via taxpayer dollars, and I don't have to pay for. Right. But the immigrants get that. You don't. As a U.S. citizen, you don't get a taxpayer funded lawyer on call. But between July of 2025 and January of 2026, this nonprofit collected more than $500,000. Think about that, folks. $500,000 to $500,000 in, July, in less than a year. Your business isn't making that. Okay. And they're not doing anything to earn that money. They are given that money from the state, taking that money from you. Okay. So you're starting to see the full picture here. ICE enforces the law. Nonprofits funded by taxpayers sound the alarm. Politicians tell people to interfere, tell people to film. And then those same politicians scream abuse and demand impeachment. This is not organic outrage. People are not actually upset about the mass deportations. This is an ecosystem. The politicians and the nonprofits are working together to create this chaos so that way they can enrich themselves. Illegal immigration isn't just tolerated. And I think that we've got to go beyond this. It's not just tolerance, we care about the immigrants, us Democrats. No, it's all about profit. It's all about the money. Follow the money. It's profitable. It's profitable for the activists. It's profitable for the politicians who rely on those activists to keep them in power and to maintain power. They need the chaos to maintain power. And Kristi Noem, through her enforcement, she simply busts up the system. Okay, she threatens that system by simply enforcing the law. Impeachment isn't suddenly on the table. It's not because she failed. It's not because she broke the law. It's not because of any of that. It's because she's succeeding and she's breaking up this ecosystem. And impeachment has become a political weapon. We see it all the time. If Democrats don't like you, they impeach you. It doesn't really mean anything anymore. If they don't like law enforcement, they call it abuse. But the American people see right through it. You see right through it, and I know you do. They know the difference between authority and lawlessness. They know the difference between compassion and chaos. And they know that this country would be a hellhole. And we saw it since Joe Biden was elected in 2020. It's a hellhole without borders. It's not compassionate not to have borders. And I encourage, if you think that open borders is very compassionate, or if it's the libertarian argument, oh, well, you have to be free to move. Okay. Open up the door of your front, take the front door off its hinges. Okay. Is it compassionate to do that? No, it's neglect. And Kristi Noem is attacked because she represents something Democrats don't believe in: accountability. These people, Democrats, would never get elected if they didn't have taxpayer-funded activists at the ready to get out the vote for them. If they had not rigged this game, rigged elections through their nonprofit organizations, they would not be in power at all in these states. And they don't believe in accountability. You know, if you really want to stay elected and you think your ideas are so great, go about it legislatively. Same thing with Governor J.B. Pritzker. You know, the COVID mandates. If you thought that those were so popular, don't do it via emergency powers. Get it passed through the legislature. I mean, you've got a super majority. Why don't you just do it that way? But he didn't. Why? Because he doesn't believe in accountability, and they won't stick by their policies and their ideologies because they know they're crap. Okay. And that's the real story here, is that they lack they don't want accountability. They don't want to, they're unprincipled people. And that's the real story. All right. Anti-ICE agitators in Minnesota, they have gotten out of control. I have this story. It's kind of been unfolding for the last couple of days, last night and into this morning. So I've got more information for you. It's gotten out of control since Renee Good hitting the immigration officer agent. You can hear the thunk. He was internally bleeding, had to go to the hospital, and she was killed in self-defense. There were some shots fired in self-defense. So anti-ICE mobs in Minnesota, let me catch you up to speed. They have been storming hotels since last Friday, and they are hunting ICE agents down who are staying in these hotels. They are causing chaos and no doubt terrifying probably a lot of these hotel guests, the guests of the hotel. Now, on Wednesday night of this week, I told you about this ambush incident. Now, I have to correct myself. I didn't give you all of the information yesterday about this incident where an ICE agent was ambushed by 3 people. The DHS came out and said that he was under attack by 3 Venezuelans. Okay, I was speculating and I said maybe it was a couple of Minnesotans who saw this all unfolding and then left their houses to go aid the Venezuelan criminal illegal that the ICE officer was chasing down. Okay, there was a traffic stop, a Venezuelan criminal illegal. It was targeted, and he ran or took his vehicle, drove the vehicle away, drove the vehicle into some traffic, jumped out of the vehicle, ran off on foot. ICE agent caught up with him. He's a Venezuelan illegal, criminal illegal alien, and he was trying to detain him. The agent was then hit by a shovel, not by the Venezuelan immigrant at first, but 2 people came running out and they were holding a shovel and a broomstick. Okay. And they were brandished by the suspects, these 2 other suspects that came in, and they started beating up this ICE officer with the weapons. Ultimately, fearing for his life, he ended up shooting one of the perps in the leg, the original perp, the Venezuelan who took off on foot, and he shot him in self-defense, shot him in the leg. Went to the hospital, was actually on the gurney smiling. Okay, so that was an incident that took place on Wednesday night. There was another incident that took place on Wednesday night involving a locker, a weapons locker from a federal vehicle. So, you know, you've seen the armored trucks. They've got lockers back there with equipment, with, you know, items, miscellaneous items were stolen. But what's really weird or freaky is that an agitator was seen on video stealing what has been described now as a FBI rifle, and he walked away with it. So an update here with this story, the suspect of this theft, of this alleged theft of the FBI rifle, has been arrested. Take a listen here. Nick Sortor, who I've talked about before, he's a conservative influencer, investigative reporter. he kind of got it all on tape. Take a look.
Almost there.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Here's some bullets.
Hey, that's a 40 shell?
I don't know. Ain't no way. Tourniquet there.
Did he get...
Okay. Hey, don't film that.
Wow. Okay, so here he is with Laura Ingraham, next sort, or who saw the whole thing go down. Take a look.
I know you just talked to a high-placed source at DOJ. Tell us more.
Yeah, so he wasn't arrested last night. He could have been, but the Minneapolis police didn't bother chasing the vehicle that had just stolen a high-powered rifle out of an FBI car. So that stole it out of one of these weapons lockers that was in the back. But what I can confirm now is that Raul Gutierrez, age 33, that you see in the video that I posted last night, stealing a firearm from an FBI vehicle, has been arrested by the ATF and the DOJ. They executed an arrest warrant today, and he's a known member of the Latin Kings gang. I just got all this information just before I came on air. He's got a lengthy, violent rap sheet. Of course, he should have been in prison already, but in Tim Waltz, Minnesota, like they don't arrest anybody here. So it's not surprising that he was able to go out and beat this gun safe to a pulp and pull this automatic firearm out of it and run away with it. And, you know, hell, if it wasn't for, honestly, a lot of us independent journalists on the ground that were able to get a video of this, nobody would have seen it happen.
Wouldn't know about
They were
it.
able to find this guy based on a video from independent journalists, the one that we posted last night. I mean, it's crazy that it has to be us doing this.
So, Nick, did you talk to DOJ to get his name?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's I've been in contact with Attorney General Pam Bondi throughout the day today. We've talked to him several
We'll
times.
take that
because
as
I
a
have a lot more
confirmation.
material that I haven't posted. Yeah, and so they've been. There's a lot of FBI stuff going on the ground right now that I can't talk about, but there's more coming.
Wow. Okay, so DOJ Attorney General Pam Bondi, she also shared more details on X. She said our ATF HQ agents in Minneapolis, alongside the Justice Department partners, executed an arrest warrant on a known member of the Latin Kings gang. So somebody said, dude with the face tat is toast. Yeah, the dude with the face tat is a member of the Latin Kings. He allegedly stole FBI body armor and weaponry. In addition to this, he has a long list of priors. This criminal is a perfect example. This is what Pam Bondi says of what our brave federal law enforcement agents are up against every single day. Like, I would not want to be on the street with that guy. He knows what he's doing. He beat this safe into a pulp. He's a career criminal. He's not afraid. And these agents are up against that every single day in Minnesota and Chicago, elsewhere. They're up against that, and the Minnesota leadership, Tim Walz, is encouraging this type of law breaking. So Pam Bondi says thank you to our agents for their outstanding police work. Absolutely, like crazy. We do have FBI Director Kash Patel weighing in on X as well. FBI Director Kash Patel also shared news of this guy being arrested on his X feed, and he included photos of the beaten, heavily beaten gun safe. So let me share these photos with you. I think it's fascinating. Here we go. Kash Patel posted this. Look at that car. Beaten, smashed. Look at this car. completely destroyed. Vandalism, destruction, theft of government property. Kaz Patel, he posted this. He said, as of this evening, one individual who allegedly stole federal government property out of an FBI vehicle in Minneapolis last night has been arrested. He's a member of the Latin Kings, known violent criminal history. Thank you to our partners, ATF, Justice Department, Pam Bondi, for executing the warrant. FBI personnel are continuing to pursue other subjects involved. Obviously, you could see in that video, the original video I played for you, there were many people stealing things. Somebody said there's a tourniquet. They stole a tourniquet. They just pretty much stole everything out of this FBI or out of this locker. Okay, this federal law enforcement locker. Right down to the freaking stickers that were on it. There will be more arrests. I hope so, Cash. Again, any individual who attacks law enforcement, vandalizes federal property paid for by hardworking taxpayers will be found and arrested. So that is Kash Patel on X. I want to shift gears. Let's talk about an article. Gavin Newsom. There's or an article, a podcast. Came across this podcast of Gavin Newsom and Ben Shapiro. They did it yesterday. And there was a post from his press office, Gavin Newsom, and I've talked about his press office before. They are a wacky bunch. He's probably got to get some new people in there. But Gavin Newsom walked back a social media post that his press office had put out after he faced some pressure from Ben Shapiro in a podcast, and he agreed with Shapiro that it was fair to say that ICE officers are not terrorists. Okay, so Gavin Newsom, had a conversation with Ben Shapiro on This Is the Gavin Newsom podcast. Ben Shapiro grilled the governor about a post from his press office, his official press office, taxpayer-funded press office. They made a post following the killing of Renee Good, the shooting of Renee Good, and it simply read this. This is the post put out by the press office. Taxpayer funded, by the way. State-sponsored terrorism. So just like Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, Newsom's team is ramping up the inciting rhetoric. They're ramping it up to 11 on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, they are really inciting people. They're ramping up the inciting rhetoric. But when asked to stand by his team and his team's description of what happened to Renee Good, they called it state-sponsored terrorism. Gavin Newsom, he didn't have the cojones to stand up for what his own office is spewing. He said, Ben Shapiro was asking Gavin, hey, your press office tweeted this out, that this was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I just have to ask you about that. That sort of thing makes our politics worse. And it does, says Shapiro, to which Gavin Newsom responded, yeah. So he agreed with Ben Shapiro. And he said, our ICE officers are obviously not terrorists. A tragic situation is not state-sponsored terrorism. And Newsom said, yeah, I think that's fair. Take a listen to the exchange.
A narrative that was immediately pushed by the Trump administration and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem that she was a domestic terrorist who was attempting to run over officers with her car and was legitimately trying, not just this officer, but multiple officers. That was the original statement. I said at the time, I thought that was untrue. And then your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I do have to ask.
Okay, so you guys know how I feel about Ben Shapiro. I got to roll my eyes. We know that Renee Good, here's what we do know. She enrolled her son in a social justice, it was a charter school. It was specifically targets social justice activism. So rather than teaching kids math, science, reading, this is an indoctrination camp. She enrolled her child, her 6-year-old, into this. And through that school, we know that friends have talked about how she was very active. We know that, she was an activist, and there's been at least reports, not just from the DHS, about her being involved in a rapid response group. Okay. Now, I don't know exactly how true that is, but I'm going to err on the side of like, yeah, probably, because this woman was not your typical leftist. Okay. This is not somebody who just watches CNN occasionally. This was somebody who was on the streets all day. I mean, there was ICE agents, an ICE agent who's facing internal bleeding after being hit by his car. So by this car, and we have subsequent footage of Renee Good smiling, provoking. Her spouse was provoking ICE officers, filming them. And there was a group of people. There was an ICE vehicle that was caught in the snow in Minnesota, ice snow. And they were digging it out. And while they were trying to dig it out, they were having things thrown at them. So, I don't know what else you would call terrorism, right? Somebody who's provoking federal law enforcement as they're trying to execute an operation. And, she might be involved in, groups like ICE Watch, these rapid response teams that do virtual trainings. According to DHS sources, that's what they're saying. And not only that, but, people who knew her, but wouldn't describe her as, just a mom. She was a social justice activist, a warrior, social justice warrior, and that was her life. And that's not me saying that. That's her friends. Okay. At this vigil, one of her friends who also goes to that school that her child was enrolled in talked about how, Renee Good was an activist. So her being connected to some sort of group, this ICE Watch group, which definitely meets, I think, the criteria of a domestic terrorist group. They're coordinating, they've got funding, and the goal is to take down federal law enforcement and impede their operations in enforcing the laws of this country. Like, I don't know how else you would define, what Renee Good was. But whatever, I'm going to continue playing the clip. I just disagree with Ben Shapiro here because it's like, he goes, I didn't think that was possible right when I heard it, the DHS, and they called Renee Good a domestic terrorist. She might not have thought of herself as a domestic terrorist. It might not be, I think when we hear the word terrorist, we think like somebody with a bomb strapped to their chest. Okay. A lot of domestic terrorism today are, women getting together and trying to undermine the laws of this country. That's what I think code, or what is it? Code Pink. You've got Antifa. They're liberal women with way too much time on their hands. They get together and they come up with ideas on how to take down America. And I think that meets the definition of domestic terrorism, terrorist. Okay, she might not have had a bomb strapped to her chest and, walked into a building, a government building, but she rammed her vehicle into federal law enforcement when she was asked to get out of the car a couple of times. But anyway, let's continue.
Ask you about that.
Yeah.
That sort of thing makes our politics worse.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yeah.
I mean, our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists.
Yeah.
A tragic situation is not state-sponsored terrorism.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So Newsom admitted that Shapiro's point is fair. I mean, his own press office would say that federal ICE officers, they are state-sponsored terrorism. State-sponsored terrorism, I would say, is what's going on with the ICE Watch groups. Taxpayer funded. They're doing virtual trainings on how to impede ICE agents from conducting their operations. They're doing virtual trainings on how to stop law from being enforced. That's open rebellion of the United States. I would say that that's state-sponsored terrorism. Now, what the ICE agents are doing, they're deputized. Donald Trump was duly elected. He said that he was going to be carrying out mass deportations. There's a law on the books that says that, hey, if you're not a citizen, if you're not granted some sort of temporary status that you maintain, then you face deportation, right? Not state-sponsored terrorism, just enforcing the law that's currently on the books. But one can't help but be reminded of another example of Newsom's hypocrisy. Again, this was on his podcast. This is the Gavin Newsom podcast. He was talking with the late, great Charlie Kirk. He was elegantly coiffed, had hair gel, in his hair. And he admitted back in March of 2025 that biological males playing in women's sports was simply wrong. And he says, he said this, I think it's an issue of fairness in regards to the boys playing in girls sports. I completely agree with you on that. It's an issue of fairness. It's deeply unfair. So what did he do following that admission with Charlie Kirk? Nothing, zero, zilch, nada. Okay. Meanwhile, you've got boys continuing to play against girls, men continuing to play against women in California, robbing females of medals, robbing females of scholarships, and he has sat silently, even after admitting to Charlie Kirk. And here is the tweet at the time. Here's what Charlie Kirk said. After admitting to me that men and women's sports was deeply unfair, Gavin Newsom is turning his back on common sense and instead retreating to the fanatical left. His new lawsuit against the Trump DOJ claims that banning boys from girls' sports causes serious harm to transgender students, while completely ignoring the far greater harm suffered by women when men intrude in their bathrooms, locker rooms, and sporting competitions. So Charlie Kirk put that out. This isn't inclusion. It's ideology over reality. And fortunately for us, this ideology is profoundly unpopular. That's what Charlie Kirk said. And this guy, so Stephen Miller, let me actually look this up. I think it was Stephen Miller, the deputy chief. Hang on. I've got this. Give me 1 second. I'm kind of doing this on the fly because I remember his press team putting out something about Stephen Miller, like he was a member of Hitler's Nazi group. Hold on. Yeah. So the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, they suggested the press office, which is, they attempt to mock President Donald Trump. This is a taxpayer-funded office. They, put out juvenile statements on a regular basis. There is no bounds of decency. For instance, they implied, not so subtly, that Stephen Miller, the White House Chief of Staff, Deputy Chief of Staff, was a member of the notorious Schutzstaffel. So this is otherwise known as Hitler's SS. And really, their posts are not written like, paid professionals, as the paid professionals should be, putting out statements, and, it's taxpayer funded. This really, a lot of their tweets that they put out, it reads like, Beavis and Butthead. It sounds like it's written by Beavis and Butthead. A lot of their statements that they put out in X posts. I do think that Gavin Newsom here, I would not want to be left in a foxhole with him, because what does the Charlie Kirk thing about the boys being in girls sports thing, and what does Ben Shapiro, where Gavin Newsom is not standing by his press office's statement, What does that tell you? It tells you that when bullets start flying, he's going to use you as a shield. Okay. I can't imagine the press office is feeling too positive right now. He sold out his press office. This guy's got no principle. Okay. He kind of just goes with the wind, wherever the wind's blowing. Boys and girls sports. Well, that's terrible. Well, I'll say that while I'm in the room with you, but I'll say something completely different when I'm out of this room. And I don't know about you, but those types of people really irk me. Be a principled person, right? He'd make a good AI chatbot, though. You can train him very quickly to say whatever you want, especially if you give him money. Okay. If you have money to donate, he'll say whatever the heck you want. That's the type of guy Gavin Newsom is. Okay. I wanted to talk about RFK Jr., one of my favorite, if not my favorite. I think he's my favorite Trump administration official. Outside of Tom Homan. I think Tom Homan. It goes RFK Jr., Tom Homan. Love those guys. It's time to make steak great again. Steak. So the federal government has rolled out a new set of nutritional guidelines. So I'm going to break this down. And I don't know about you, but when I saw the nutritional guidelines, the new national nutritional guidelines come out, I just simply asked myself this question: why hasn't it always been this way? And RFK just simply came out and said, hey, it's time to eat real food. And I don't want to present myself as a nutritionist. Clearly, I've gained quite a bit of weight. I'm like 36 weeks pregnant. I'm getting close. I was way, way better prior to pregnancy. I'll get back there. But yeah, I'm not a nutritionalist. I definitely try to limit my processed foods. I mean, I'm not perfect. But one, I just really like cooking. And once you start to make things homemade, like for example, noodles, and I love making noodles. Like that's one of my favorite things. I've got a KitchenAid. It's kind of fun. Noodles and bread, sourdough bread. Once you start making your own food, you realize, wow, this is really simple. This is an ingredient. There is one or two things, like for example, noodles. You look on the back of the noodles, there's like, 20 ingredients. I'll tell you how I make mine: egg, flour, maybe a little bit of olive oil. And that's it. And they taste way better, and they're so fun to make. You kind of roll it out and let the dough set for 30 minutes. And I know we're a microwave generation, but I'm not a nutritionist, not a doctor, but I make food. And anybody who makes food, like homemade, you make some noodles, you make some bread, you make your own tomato sauce, you make your own stuff. You're going to realize that, hey, this is just common sense. I think we can all kind of agree that RFK Jr., his nutritional guidance is literally just common sense. I don't know why we strayed away from it. I don't know why this wasn't always a thing. Were they trying to kill us? Okay, by trying to convince us like eggs are terrible for you and red meat is terrible for you, whole foods are terrible for you. A bowl of Cheerios, folks, a bowl of Cheerios is what's best for you. Like, were they trying to kill us? I don't know. So you should be moving every single day. Movement, even me pregnant, I'm trying to move. I'm going to try to go on a walk here later today. I try to get out and move a little bit. It's hard, but eating whole foods, movement, eating when you're hungry, eating up until a point that you're full or satisfied, not overeating, like you are going to solve 90% of your problems. Again, not a nutritionalist, not a doctor. This is just common sense. According to CNN, the latest update coming from RFK is this inverted pyramid. So quite literally, you guys remember the school food pyramid. I should pull it up. But it was like this. And at the bottom, you should be eating a ton of bread and a ton of grains. And then at the tippity top, you had your like fats like cheese and butter and milk. animal products. Okay. So the latest coming from RFK is this inverted pyramid. Okay. So it goes like this. And he just literally flips it. It puts meats, cheeses, and vegetables as the widest part at the top. And, this kind of flips the longstanding visual of the American diet. And it moves away from the circular plate. So outside of this pyramid, where you had all the grains at the bottom, the white bread and your Cheerios, they had the circular plate where half of it should be carbs, a little sliver of it should be proteins, and then the rest of it is like, I don't know, fruits or grains. Like you have like potatoes, bread, and a little bit of vegetables, or like, and we're kind of moving away from the circular my plate. You guys can go look up these images, but we're moving away from that, and we've got this inverted pyramid now. And they also suggest, so RFK, HHS, prioritizing fiber-rich whole grain with 2 or 4 servings per day, and significantly reducing highly processed refined carbs like white bread, flour tortillas, and crackers, and Cheerios. Okay, Cheerios are highly processed. There's soybean oil, I'm sure, in them. I don't know. Everything has soybean oil. And if you guys know how soybean oil is made, it's terrible for you. Hexane, they use it to soak the soybeans and to get the oil to come to the top, and then they skim the oil off. There's got to be trace amounts of that chemical, and then they try to process the hexane chemical out of it, but come on. The guidelines also recommend 3 servings of vegetables, 2 servings of fruits per day for a typical 2,000 calorie diet. And then the guidelines emphasize whole foods. Stay away from things that are frozen, stay away from things that are dried, things that are canned vegetables or fruits, because those things tend to have added sugars to them. They can be good if they don't have the added sugars. So, something that really changed my life was starting to read the back of the ingredient label. How much sugar is in this? What kind of ingredients are in this? And I don't know why there's been such a resistance to this, like, for so long, because the left has been claiming that meat is terrible for you. And, specifically steak. They said that red meat increases your risk of preventable disease, specifically eggs. I remember growing up, love my mom. She's great. And I don't blame anybody who bought into it, because, like, why would the government try to kill you? But the older I get, the more I realize, like, pretty much everything they said was wrong. And I don't know if it was, out of like ignorance, or just trying to get these companies, these highly processed foods that these companies make, on the shelves so they can make money, and then in turn the money that they make goes to the politicians who come up with this kind of crap. I don't know if it was like nefarious. Maybe everybody was just trying to make money. But I don't blame my mom. I remember my mom saying, like, don't eat eggs, right? She would not eat eggs. She thought Special K cereal was a diet food. I remember her buying her Special K, and they still market it as a diet food. So you can, like, go down the cereal aisle, you look at Special K, there's a woman on the front, like, doing yoga. They market it as an exercise food. You turn around the box, the cereal, and then you see that, like, it's literally all sugar. That is all it is just sugar and oils, sunflower oil, soybean oil, things that I cannot pronounce. And my rule is, if it's on the ingredient label and I can't pronounce it or don't know what it is, or how it's made, then I don't buy it. I try to do that. So, you take out processed red meats. Now, maybe like processed red meats, like your frozen burgers, those are probably not, super nutritious for you. It couldn't be further from the truth that red meat is terrible for you. And all the literature supports that. And, you know, my dad's doctor says, don't eat red meat. He still says it to this day. And I try to get my dad to eat red meat. I'm like, that's complete bogus. And we wonder why, like, oh, you're still not seeing results. You're still sick. Well, I mean, maybe if we were to switch it all up, and you ate red meat, you know, it would be better for you. So if you only eat red meat, you could probably do it. So there's carnivore diet out there, you know, and people just eat like red meat. Now, if you do the carnivore diet, you got to eat things like of the entire animal, like the liver and everything like that. Like, I'm not interested in that. I've had liver before and did not like it. But you could eat only meat, and live your life. I don't know how ideal it would be and how satisfying it would be. But I do know if you lived on spinach and kale, you would see your health erode very quickly. And I think that's an indicator here of what your body needs and wants. So trying to tell people that meat is terrible, it just doesn't work, because that's not reality. And I actually was vegetarian for a period of time in college, because I bought into all of it as well. And I was fatter then than when I was eating like red meat. As soon as I started eating red meat, like I was on this crazy like vegetarian diet, and I was running like crazy. I wasn't seeing like exact results I wanted. And I added protein into my diet, and then all of a sudden I leaned out. I was like a rail running, and like very, very like it was awesome. As soon as I added protein, everything got better, and I started to feel way better. And you talk to people, that's mostly their experience. So I wanted to play this. This is funny. We are here. I'm going to share you this. This is hilarious. One thing about the White House, Secretary Kennedy's social media, like it's definitely being run by a bunch of 20-year-old TikTokers, but I'm here for it because it's hilarious. I love it. I love it. We are living in an era right now. It's going to go down in history as the greatest of all time. I absolutely love RFK Jr. All right, one more story, and we're going to wrap up the show today with this nuts, prunes, dates. Yes, I was vegetarian, then I went carnivore for 10 years. Rice and beans, very, very cheap, very good for you. Beans, specifically their protein, but yeah, fatty red meat, eggs, milk. One thing that I think too is we try to do all of this. My mom had me on the 90s low-fat diet. Yes, that's literally me. Like my mom would not buy whole milk. She'd only buy skim milk, and we eat like Cheerios and, you know, eggs. She was really nervous about because it raises your cholesterol, is what people were saying. And she like, it's like egg whites only. And like, you buy into that. And it's not her fault, you know, because you wouldn't think that the government's trying to kill you, but I think that they were trying to kill us, or maybe it was, you know, less nefarious, and they were just trying to make money. I think that might be a better explanation. But yeah, there are definitely depopulation people out there who'd like to see you dead, because they believe that, you know, the population rising is going to kill the planet, and they're, you know, paranoid freaks. But yeah, the low fat diet, and what it's really all about is feeling satiated. So for me, it's like, yeah, you can eat your skim milk and your Special K or Cheerios in the morning, and you're going to eat that, and literally 5 minutes later, you're going to feel hungry again. because your blood sugar does all kinds of crazy things. I've learned more about it through pregnancy because your pregnancy really screws up your blood sugar. It's crazy what hormones do. But like you're never going to feel satiated. So then you're going to make up for that through eating, like engorging and gluttony. And when you eat fats, meat, butter, whole milk, you're going to stay full longer, and you're not going to require like 70 meals full of sugar, because you're going to have that sustained energy. And like rice and beans is great. Beans, like it's a slow carb, so it's not like something that spikes your blood sugar right away. So yeah, I eat beans for breakfast. I know, weird, especially since I've been pregnant. I know, crazy. Beans were like non-fat Greek, or not non-fat, whole Greek yogurt. Love the whole Greek yogurt. I don't do the flavors in it though. I don't do that. I put a little bit of honey in mine because I don't buy into the whole artificial colors and sweeteners and stuff like that. So I try to stay away from that. So just the plain Greek yogurt, which isn't all that tasty, but if you add like berries and honey to it, delicious. All right, let's home gardens. Yes, we really need that. What I've learned is glyphosate. And actually RFK did like an entire podcast with Joe Rogan on glyphosate. And that is a hormone disruptor. Like your hormones and your diet, they all work together. And that's a hormone disruptor, glyphosate. And it's all over the produce you buy in the store. And it's hard to get away from it. Because like where are you going to get your produce, unless you grow it yourself? So yeah, I'm all for home gardens. Get away from some of the things that you can't get away from. But yeah, it's not. Sometimes it's really hard to do, the home gardens, and it's really hard to do your research, and it gets expensive. So we need a shift in this country. And it's beginning to happen with RFK rolling out these new nutritional guidelines. So my hope is that these companies take these nutritional guidelines and they're like, okay, well, we're going to start doing what RFK Jr. and the HHS wants us to do, because that's going to be the most profitable. If they're out there, now we have to take it a step further. HHS, RFK, what are we going to do education wise? Are we going to put the inverted pyramid up in schools? Are we going to require schools follow the new nutritional guidelines? Are the schools actually going to follow it, or are they going to just continue with their circular plate model? Because RFK bad. I will have to see what happens next. But there has to be education, because if you educate the public, then the companies will follow, because the consumers will be in control of the companies rather than the companies being in control of this consumer. Now, let's get to Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, okay? Because this is hilarious and weird. So he said, according to Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, that a typical day of teaching includes kids falling out the windows. Yes. Pause for dramatic effect. But don't worry, because they always caught the students. Have no fear. Brandon Johnson is here, and he's, a cape, and he, goes and catches the students out of falling out of windows. Now, I don't know what exactly he's talking about here. Maybe he misspoke. I don't know. I looked at it in its full context, and I still can't quite understand what he was trying to say. According to him, this is like an everyday occurrence, and it happens to people in the city. And most people don't realize that this is going on, where kids are falling out of windows in the school. So I think the direction he wanted to take here was that our infrastructure, we don't have the ability to lock our windows. We don't have the ability to keep the kids inside because the windows are so bad. Maybe he wants more money, because it's Brandon Johnson. I don't know what he was trying to say here, because I scrubbed the internets and I could not really find an incident where a child fell out the window. I found one, and I'm no educational expert, but if this was happening every day, like, how much funding do you need to really lock the windows, or to put some sort of child lock on it, or something, child-proof windows? Like, is anybody thinking of that? Like, it clearly, I mean, this is the Chicago Public Schools. They are the very funded, the most funded in the nation, probably, school district. Like, you can't take some of that money, divert it from your travel, your excessive travel, divert it from your balloon displays, and, keep the windows locked. I don't know why people haven't thought of that, but take a look.
I was teaching, and I would come home and talk to my wife about my day, and she would say, honey, that's not normal, what you're talking about. I'm like, what do you mean? She said, the child fell out the window. I said, yeah, honey, but we caught him, And as an example of how severe conditions can be, we live this stuff every single day that most people in this city will never experience and see.
Okay. So I checked the internet, and I only found one instance of a child falling out of the window in 2014. According to ABC, a Chicago student is recovering after, and this was in 2014, after falling from a window of a school on the city's south side. That's the only story I could find. So Johnson saying, like, oh, I see this kind of stuff every day, and people don't understand what it's like to live in the city. Like, I don't know where he's getting that from, because for some odd reason, I find it hard to believe that kids are falling out of windows in the school districts. And even if that were true, which I wouldn't doubt for a second it's not, that shows how incompetent, and it's really embarrassing. And that's something you don't want to admit out loud there, Brandon Johnson, that the educational leaders are that incompetent where they're not able to child-proof windows. Right? Like, is that what you're suggesting? Like, you need more money to child-proof the windows? Is that what he wants? I don't know. And he tried to make this about equity. So, like, brown kids are falling out of the windows because, I don't know. And it's deeply pathetic. So I can't believe, can you believe that Chicago elected a mayor who claimed that he has caught students falling out of windows? Like, I think that would go down in history as huge. And, like, I would be able to find Brandon Johnson saving a child from a falling window. I haven't found it, the article, when he was a school teacher, but I don't know if he thought that the story would make him look good. It really just confuses his constituency. Like, are kids falling out of the windows? And if that's the case, like, we're going to pull the kids out. Like, you guys are not going to have your enrollment declining. Yeah, it's going to be even worse now, because if I hear that my kid's falling out of windows and you don't even have basic infrastructure to keep the kids inside, like, I'm going to pull my kid out. Okay, and then try getting more taxpayer dollars with declining enrollment. I'd love to see you try, Brandon, but I think this made him look like an imbecile. I don't even know what he's saying. But this guy was elected to be mayor, and he was a school teacher of your children. Either he's lying, that kids aren't actually falling out of windows. Okay, maybe in 2014 that happened one time. Maybe he's lying. And that would be bad, because it's just bizarre. Why would you lie about something like that? Or he truly did, and this wasn't documented by news articles or anything like that. He truly did work at a school during his time as a teacher, and nobody thought to lock the windows. Like, you can draw your own conclusions. I don't know what he meant by this. If we had a serious media, they would be inquiring as to what he meant by that, but we don't have serious media, so I really don't know what he meant. Hopefully he just, like, misspoke. Maybe he didn't mean to say windows. I don't know. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're gonna be done for the day. Good morning, everyone. Wishing you a blessed and safe day. Appreciate it. Yeah, chickens. So that's my dream, chickens. I would love to have some chickens, love to have a home garden. I don't have those things. It takes time, takes money. But anything you can do, like the eggs, the white eggs, bleached, right? The vet produce. So eggs are great for you. Milk is great for you. But there's a lot of things that they even do to all of that in the grocery store. So you got to do your research. Fairlife, the pasteurization process, I really like how that company does it. Not a sponsor. I like how that company, pasteurizes their milk. They keep a lot of the proteins in. They take a lot of the sugars out. I like that product. Brown eggs, they don't go through that bleaching process. The oranger the egg yolk, the better the egg, right? I like farm fresh eggs, but sometimes it's not possible depending on where you live. You mentioned Normal. I don't know what kind of ordinances. I haven't looked into it. I lived in an apartment when I lived in Normal. But I do know like smaller communities, even like Lincoln, they've got ordinances on chicken coops, how many chickens you could have. So your municipality, if we really cared about people, we would, and if we were really serious about it, and maybe this can be done at a federal level, hey, local municipalities, roll back your ordinances and your rules on chicken coops. Let people have their home gardens and their chickens. If we all lived, off our own land, we'd be more independent, healthier. And RFK said that his goal is to make America healthy. His 2026 goal is to make America healthy. So there's a lot that the HHS could do. Legislatively, they might have to work with Congress, banning some of these seed oils. I don't know if they're going to go as far as to do that because the farmers will be big mad. If we do that, big ag will be pissed off because ADM, right? They do all of this food processing that requires the hexane. You soak the soybeans and take the oil off. There's billions upon billions of dollars that people will lose if you outlaw things like soybean oil. But I think that the HHS could work with Congress to kind of make some legislative changes that, regulate some of these companies. And I'm not pro-regulation, but this is getting out of hand. We're starting to kill people with the food that you're creating. And my freedom, your freedom ends where mine begins. You're not, if you're trying to kill me through my food, we need to address that. Because it's attempted murder, really, at the end of the day, what some of these companies are doing when they're putting these products into the food and not being honest about exactly what they're putting in it and what effects that could have on your health. All right. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Speckled eggs. Ooh, I haven't had those before. I'd have to look into that. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Love you. See you. So today's Friday. I'll see you on Monday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. Catch you later.